For you today, does your team trust you? Now, when I say does your team trust you, my question is seriously, do you know if your team trusts you? If your immediate answer is yes, then my question is, how do you know? How do you know that they trust you? Do they just say the words that they trust you? Or can you tell that they trust you by how things happen in a meeting? See, I'm going to give you an example. I worked with a senior level team and observed the behavior of this executive team. I was invited into their meeting as they were having a discussion about a new initiative in a direction that they were going as an organization. It was a big project. It required all hands on deck, and everybody on the executive team was going to be affected. Now, before I tell you what happened, I will tell you I was there to observe the team dynamics to help the president of the organization, president and CEO, really be a better leader. His whole goal was to get more out of his team, and they were doing something big. I mean, when I say big, I'm talking really big. For those of you who want some more context, think IPO big, that they were getting ready to do an IPO, to go from a public company, from a private company to a public company, an initial public offering. And so the team dynamics at the table seemed to be aligned, that everybody was on the same page, that all was well. And so as they had their senior meeting, what I really felt like more than anything else, everybody was trying to be on their best behavior in front of me, the consultant. But they weren't trying to be on their best behavior in front of me, the consultant. They were trying to be on their best behavior because of their president and CEO. And they had learned over time that it's safer for them to stay quiet in meetings and not blow things up. And so they were tolerating the president and CEO, not trusting the president and CEO, because they did not feel trusted to disagree. Now, the reason why I'm framing this up, because this happens far too often in organizations, that they don't recognize that there is a level of tolerance that happens at the executive table because no trust exists. And that tolerance is indicated by people who don't disagree with you in an executive leadership meeting. They sit around a table, they co-sign, they add on, they puff up, or maybe they absolutely say nothing at all. And when you ask them, do you got anything you want to add on this? No, sounds good to me. When it really doesn't sound good to them at all. That they totally disagree with the strategy. They feel like it's a mistake. They feel like it's being rushed into, but there is no space for them to express that disagreement. And so my question for you is really, does your team trust you? Do they trust you enough to disagree with you? Do they trust how you'll react when they disagree with you? Or have you given them signs, thoughts, ideas, and past experiences that let them know if they disagree with you, it's going to be a problem? I hear this all the time from people who report to CEOs. They say things like, you know what, I'm going to just keep my head down and do my job. That means they see stuff and would like to say stuff, but they choose not to say it because they don't want to deal with the blowback. They don't want to deal with the pressure. They don't want to deal with the problems. So my question again, does your team trust you enough? And if your answer is yes, how do you actually know? Do you know that they trust you? Or are you just seeing the tip of the iceberg? And that's point number one, or illustration number one. We all know what an iceberg is. An iceberg is a large mass of ice that is floating in water. And you will see the tip of the iceberg floating above the water, not recognizing there is a much larger mass below the water. So here's what this could look like in your organization. The KPIs that you set for your team and the goals that they hit, those are above the water. You know whether they're on target or off target. You know whether they're succeeding or not succeeding. You can look at a KPI and know whether the strategy is working or whether the strategy is not working. You can look at the KPIs and see that. You can look at the dashboard and know whether you're winning or whether you're losing. Like in my company, we don't call it a dashboard, we call it a scoreboard. We want to know at the end of the first quarter, are we up or are we down? Is it a tie game? Are we behind? Like, just that's what we want to see. We call it a scoreboard. So the scoreboard is the tip of the iceberg. That's what's above the water. But now let me tell you what's below the water. What's below the water is the meetings that happen after the meeting. What's below the water is the text messages going between two people on your executive team that you're not aware of. And what are they saying in that text message about the proposal or the strategy that you just laid on the table that they feel like is rushed? Are they excited about it? Or are they sending a message saying, I can't believe he's trying to do this again? I can't believe that he's trying to get us to go down this road. We told him last year that this wasn't going to work, but yet he's going straight ahead with it. But they're not saying these things in the meeting. They're just saying them to each other in a text message. Or maybe it's the group chat that they have created on WhatsApp that you're not aware of. So they're communicating about work, not in a Slack channel, not in a Teams chat. They're doing it outside of the bounds of typical communication with you because they don't trust that you will respect, respond, understand, and appreciate the conversation that they're having in that chat. My question is, does your team trust you? And do you know? If so, how do you know that they trust you? Or is it safer to stay quiet? Do you have an iceberg floating in your organization that you only see the tip and you don't know what's going on underneath? Another example of this is that we see this in movies and film. It's illustrated, and it maybe even happens in your own home. I harken back to the movie Soul Food. And if you don't know Soul Food, shame on you. You need to go watch Soul Food. Don't worry about the TV show, but you should just go watch the movie Soul Food. Now, here's the context of Soul Food. A family gets together. They come from all walks of life, or they live in all kinds of places, and they all come back together to have dinner as a family. But as they're sitting there at the table, there's a lot of silence at the table. People are enjoying their food, eating, and you can sometimes hear a pin drop at the table. But the real story is all of the side stories and the side conversations that have happened outside of the table that nobody wants to bring up at the table in front of Big Mama. They want to bring it up in front of the matriarch of the family, the person who is the most important, most revered person inside the family. They don't want to bring it up in front of her. So they don't. They just keep it quiet. So they sit at the table, smile, enjoy their food, but they're all thinking something. They're all dealing with something. They all got a problem. They all feel like there's an elephant in the room, but there is no way I'm going to bring this up at this table. There's no way I'm going to talk about this at this table. There's absolutely no way I'm going to say anything because I'm not trying to get cussed out at the table. I'm not trying to embarrass myself. I'm not trying to be the person who gets attacked. I don't want none of that smoke. So instead, I'm going to just sit here and eat my meatloaf and be quiet. It also makes me think about the Sugar Hill Gang song where he goes to his friend's house to get something to eat, but the food just ain't no good. You know, he's being polite. The macaroni is nasty. The chicken tastes like wood. You know the song of the Sugar Hill Gang and rappers alike, that you literally will sit there at that family dinner table and not say anything whatsoever because you don't want to be the person who causes a ruckus because the food is nasty. You know, so you'll be quiet, super quiet at the table. Food is nasty, but you don't want to say anything. So my question for you is this what's happening around your executive table? Do you literally have a team who will sit there and eat those nasty mashed potatoes and macaroni and cheese and know that the chicken tastes like wood, but they won't say a single word. And you think they love the meal. They love everything that you're serving up, but it's nasty. And they want to say something, but they're afraid to offend you because of how you might respond. So I want you to know you might be having a soul food dinner at your executive table. You might be having a soul food dinner. Now, let me be clear. Here's a real example. Before I get back to the first team, I'll get back to another organization that they went through a launch of and I'm not going to say a new project. They basically launched a new technology inside the organization. I can't trying to give you as much as I can give you without telling on who my client is. And I won't ever tell on who my client is, but I'm gonna just tell you, they were launching a new technology in the organization. And for the previous 6 months, there were people who knew it was going to go bad, but they didn't say anything because they knew that they were going to get their head chopped off or be blamed for it failing if they just didn't support it. So they supported it. They launched it. It didn't go well. And then at the failure of the launch, in the debrief meeting, the CEO or the executive leader wanted to know why it went bad. And people threw out a few paltry things that they could say as to why it went bad or why it didn't go right or why this didn't work or why that didn't work, a few things. But when the meeting was over and they walked out of the meeting and people walking down the hallway, somebody had the nerve to actually say, Stevie Wonder could see that this project wasn't going to go well. And I thought for a moment, that means you knew that it wasn't going to work, but you didn't have a psychologically safe place to be able to disagree without people getting defensive and attacking you and interrupting you and mad because you weren't on the same page. That happens a lot. Now, I will tell you, I've even seen it in this regard where one person will disagree with the executive team. You got 9 people around an executive table. Somebody brings up a project idea or the CEO brings up the project idea and 7 other people nod their head and agree and say it's a good idea or don't say nothing at all. But then one person has the courage to say, you know what? I totally disagree. We should not be doing this. This is the wrong thing. And then they say it and they out there on an island by themselves because 7 other people didn't disagree. So then this person is in a back and forth with the CEO, seemingly disagreeing with the CEO. The CEO doesn't like this agreement and then says something, well, let's just take your disagreement offline, but we're going to move forward. And then after the meeting, people come back to that executive office and say, you know what? I totally agree with you. Wait a minute. You were sitting in a meeting with me. You saw me disagree. You saw me speak up, but yet you now going to come to me after the meeting is over with and tell me that you agree with me after you left me sitting there looking like a fool? I'm telling y'all that story because that story was me. I was a person who disagreed with the executive leader in the room, said it, had the courage to say it, laid out my points of why I disagreed. But I sat there looking like I was the only odd man out because nobody else had anything to say. But then they want to come to my office afterwards, close the door behind them and say, I don't know why we're doing this. I totally agree with you. And I said to them, get out of my office. Don't come in here and tell me that you agree with me now if you couldn't agree with me in the meeting. And what that sign was that we didn't have a culture of psychological safety around the executive table. And that people, they didn't feel safe. I felt safe. I can tell you all of the reasons why I felt safe, but I don't have time to do that in this particular program because I want to give you some goals, some things that you need to do. But my main point to you is I want you to understand that those icebergs exist in your organization. You might have the quiet family dinner table around your executive table. And yes, in the post-mortem of when things go bad, somebody is saying off in a corner, I knew that wasn't going to go well, or Stevie Wonder could see that that project wasn't going to work. That's what happens. Okay. Now I see I got a couple comments here. Right. Eric says the Persians used to kill the messengers who brought bad news to the Shah. Naturally, the messengers began running away and not delivering critical information to military advisors in general. That's exactly what happens in organizations. That when you kill the messenger, you hate the messenger, and sometimes when you even hate the message, you're going to stifle not only creativity, but you're going to stifle the pushback that you need in order to be able to build projects and successes in the way they need to be built. So I'm telling you right now, you cannot have that kind of environment in your organization. So let me tell you very quickly the 3 things you need to do to fix this. And when I say 3 things you as a leader need to do, how you should operate in real time if you want to make sure that your team actually trusts you and that you know that they trust you. That there is no, I'm just going to keep my head down. I'm going to stay quiet. So I'm going to give you 3 things to do. First thing you need to do is you got to stop rewarding only agreement and reward disagreement. Create a safe space for people to disagree. So let me give you an example. I work with a leader, and I'm going to give you his name because he was an amazing guy. So happy I had the privilege of work with him. His name was Derek Paul. Derek Paul was a chief people officer at a large financial institution. Derek always had a way of making sure that it was a safe space for people to disagree with the direction of the team. Now, how did he do that? This was genius. This is what he did. I'll use an example. Let's say he had a team of 7 people, okay? So every time they would have a team meeting, before the meeting, he would go to a person on the team and say to them, Anton, I need you to be the person that disagrees in this meeting. And what do I mean disagreement? That whatever we are coalescing around as an idea, I want you to be the devil's advocate. I want you to give the counter argument to doing this or the counter argument to the project. And so every time he did a team meeting with his team, he picked a different person and encouraged them to be the one to poke holes in the strategy in the argument. He empowered them to poke holes in the argument. So he wanted them to come in with the mindset, don't go along with the group think, even if you agree with the group. Find a way to defeat the argument or to change the perspective or to question what we're doing or why we're doing or how much is it going to cost. He empowered people to push back. And I thought that was a genius way. And I saw him do this for his team, and it helped them to get more crystal clear about what they were doing. And it actually prepared them for pushback from other people in the organization who didn't know why they needed to go down the path because they had already contemplated all of the ifs, to use my Samuel L. Jackson phrase from Pulp Fiction. I don't need you contemplating the ifs because we've already contemplated the ifs. So I'm telling you right now, you got to create the space for people to disagree, and that's how you build trust. You build trust because you creating the space for truth. You got to create an environment for people to be truthful about the things that they see. And so soon as it started happening, people who were not the designated person to disagree started disagreeing when they didn't agree with stuff. And it created this completely truthful and trusting environment on his team. And that's why he was always stellar getting the best work out of his team in an organization, because he created an environment where people were okay to disagree, to be truthful with what they didn't agree with. So I'm giving you that nugget. You got to stop rewarding agreement, and you got to find a way to reward disagreement. Create the space, because sometimes people got super excited that they got picked to be the one to poke holes in other people's argument. It was good. It just really would. It went over well. So that's the first thing I'm going to give you. You stop rewarding agreement and create the space for truth by allowing people to disagree in a meeting. Here's the second thing. This one is really, really big. This might be the biggest one of the 3 things that I'm going to share with you. And this one is you, and I'm talking about you. Let me just say it like I feel it. Your reaction is creating the culture in your organization. Let me just say it again. Your reaction is transmuting what your culture is going to be like. Your reaction. So if you're insecure in your reaction, if you're defensive in your reaction, if you interrupt people, if you shut them down in the conversation, your reaction is going to create the culture. So if you invite more disagreement, you're going to create a culture of people to disagree. If you invite more people to be honest, it's going to create that culture. But I've seen so many leaders, executive leaders, be defensive, interrupt people, embarrass people in meetings, and they end up being sick. And when I mean sick, let me tell you what an executive leader who's sick, what it looks like. SICK is an acronym that I came up with. SICK stands for selfish, insecure, controlling, know-it-all. You don't want to be described as a selfish, insecure, controlling, know-it-all executive. Your reaction to how people say things and what they disagree with creates an environment where people decide that they don't want to participate. So your reactions are what sets your culture. You create the culture. So I'm telling you, don't be defensive when people disagree with you. Don't interrupt them. Let them finish their point. And when they finish their point, ask anybody else, does anybody else agree with him? Agree with her? And definitely don't embarrass people in a meeting. Never do that. Never do that. They're not going to come back from that. If you embarrass somebody in a meeting, just know you created a mortal enemy. And I've seen it happen. I'll never forget this physician leader in the middle of an LDI, a Leadership Development Institute, where 400 colleagues are in a meeting. And it's really like a training. I was there to be a keynote speaker, but before I got up on stage, they were having a talk back with the CEO, like a Q&A with the CEO. And somebody didn't agree with what the CEO was doing. It was a physician executive who chaired a department. And he stood up in a meeting trying to embarrass the CEO. Now, why would you think this person who's not the CEO be trying to embarrass the CEO? He was a tenured professor as well, so he knew he couldn't be fired. So he wasn't worried about termination at all. But he got up in the meeting trying to embarrass the CEO, trying to play I gotcha. It was foolish. Foolish. But the CEO didn't react. He didn't react. And that's a smart thing. So number one, your reaction will send a bigger message about your culture than anything else, but never embarrass them. And more importantly, don't be a sick leader. Don't be selfish. Don't be insecure. Don't be controlling the conversation. And don't have all of the answers. Don't be a know-it-all. Nobody wants to work for an executive leader who think they got all of the answers. And this leads to my third one. My third point for the day, and I'm pretty much done after this, is that you got to build a psychologically safe environment by making sure curiosity is the most important standard you have as a leader. You create psychological safety by being curious as a leader. So what do I mean? If you want to demonstrate that you're not a know-it-all, then you need to add these phrases to your executive lexicon as a leader. Then when you pitch an idea, you put something on the table and somebody disagrees with it, you need to learn first to say, tell me more. Tell me more. Or say more about that. Can you go a little bit deeper for me? These are all simple phrases that you as an executive leader need to embody with your team. That when someone disagrees, you got to create the psychological safety in the environment for them to explain themselves or what's going on by saying, tell me more. Say more about that. Can you give me a little bit more insight into that? And here's one that I love to use all the time, and that is, help me to understand blank. Help me to understand why you don't think this is the best strategy. And then shut up. Let them respond to you. Let them tell you what you don't understand. Because you don't understand everything unless you're a know-it-all leader, a sick know-it-all leader. But in general, you don't know everything. This is the way to build a psychologically safe environment where you can completely answer the question that my team trusts me. Because I asked you at the beginning, does your team trust you? And if you say yes, how do you know? Do you have healthy disagreement in your meetings? Do you have debates, discussions? Does everybody feel psychologically safe to raise their points? Have you empowered people to disagree with the groupthink? Do you reward that or do you punish that? And then on top of that, have you learned how to control your reactions as a leader? You got to be curious. So that's what I got for you. Now, if this pricked your heart and your spirit, and you're wondering, do you have the trust that you need, and you want some help or resource, I have a free resource for you. If you type the word trust in the chat, in the comments, if you will, type the word trust, or you can send me a DM with the word trust. I will send you an executive checklist. What I call the effective executive checklist is a tool to help you to build more psychological safety, more trust, to show you what the best executives do all of the time. I have it for you. I'll give it to you, but you have to type the word trust in the comments, or you have to send me a direct message with the word trust. Now, here's the last thing I'm going to close with. I'm going to close with this. I'm going to ask you this question, and I want you to really think about the answer to this question. If you have your next executive team meeting and you said to your team, if there were no consequences for anything that you're about to say to me in the next 5 minutes, what would you tell me that you have never said to me? That's what I want you to think about. If you have your next executive team meeting and you said to your executive team, your leadership team, if there were no consequences for anything what you're about to say to me, what would you tell me that you have not told me? And if you don't know the answer to those questions before you ask those questions, then I want you to know that you got a problem with trust and psychological safety in your organization, and you might need more help than I can give you in this 25-minute live video. And if you want that help, I'm prepared to do whatever it takes to get you to a place where your team trusts you, to help you to become that kind of leader. So I want you to send me a direct message. If you think that if you ask your team that question, if there were no consequences for what you were about to say to me, what's something that you would tell me that you haven't told me? And you don't already know the answer to those questions, you need some help. So type the word help in a DM, send it to me, and let's figure out how we can get you to become the leader that everybody trusts and that they're willing to speak up. So I want to thank you for watching. Everybody have a fantastic day. And I'm seeing all of these comments in the chat. They're coming to you shortly. Everybody have a great day.